Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me today. No big announcements or anything new to update you guys on. We are still working on this really colorful painting next to me. Last time I showed you guys how I plan out the composition of a piece when it's just kind of flowy and I have an idea of what I want, but really how to get into the groove and solidify all of that. I hope you had fun watching that. I really hope some of you had fun and gave it a try yourself. Today we're going to add some more color to the piece in the form of purple, so that means we are working on the clouds. Clouds are one of my favorite things to, one, watch in the sky. I personally love finding pictures in clouds, so that's made them even more fun to figure out how to paint and actually put onto the canvas. So that is what we're going to be doing. All of that being said, let's create.
Here we go. Okay, I psyched you guys out just a little bit. The clouds are not the first thing we're working on. Just to establish where it is in the painting, because it's directly adjacent to the clouds, I'm taking my palette knife and some gray, and these are the steps that I talked about in the last video. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't lose them, and I knew I wanted the clouds to kind of overlap them maybe just a little bit, so that's why these are going on first. Again, simple gray, palette knife, just really using a scrubbing motion. If you haven't played with a palette knife before, I highly recommend it. It's a super fun tool just to mess around with. You could even do an entire painting with a palette knife, and artists totally do. I've seen really fantastic paintings done that way, so I would check it out if you haven't. Same thing down here at the bottom, again, just solidifying some areas that I want to keep in mind as I progress forward with the painting. I knew that it was going to be adjacent to kind of the pumpkins, or what's going to be to the right of it, directly adjacent in a little bit. But first I'm just blocking this out. I also wanted to define those lower circles because I have some very kind of sketching type color that I wanted to put towards the bottom. So again, just defining my lines, nothing too big here, lots of scraping motions, not a lot of paint going on the canvas. This is actually just a very opaque gray. If you use a lot of paint, however, though, it's really fun to find out how to put a lot of texture in your painting. Maybe that's something that we'll do in one of the upcoming paintings. We'll do something with a lot more texture to it, because that is a bonus of acrylic, and I can talk about that a little more maybe for a future painting, is that it dries, and it dries a lot faster than oil paints do. So you can really create some cool textures on the canvas and know that it's not going to crack or cause issues for you later. So here we go with the purple, starting on the clouds. This is just a round brush and kind of this is my darker purple that I was going for. We're actually going to darken it up a lot more later in the painting. Right now I'm just establishing where the clouds are, and I am just using a very fierce circular motion, just over and over, just kind of like flicking my wrist. So just using lots of circular motions, trying to keep the very fluffy aspects of the clouds. And as far as shape goes, it's hard to define where the breaks in the clouds really need to be, and that comes just from personal instinct and your gut telling you what to do. So just dive in there, and it comes from looking at lots and lots of clouds. Like I said before, they are one of my favorite things just to watch and to look at. I've stared at so many clouds already in my life, and I do it every chance I get. I just watch for pictures. So whether you're heading outside and looking at clouds, or even if you're just scrolling through reference pictures and check out all the cool different ways that clouds form for sunsets in the middle of a bright, beautiful day. I mean, they take all sorts of different shapes just depending on where they're forming and what they're doing hanging out up there. You guys can see that I added some green. I don't actually have the video for that. And that's just a very light green that I threw in those circles to remind me, again, kind of like I'm doing with the clouds. At this stage in the painting, I'm just defining what is going to be where. So that green in those circles is just reminding me that I decided I want to put trees in them. So they're kind of my little portal view to these other worlds where these forests are growing. And that's just what I threw in there to define that for me and remind me what I'm doing. and have a lot of fun. The reason I broke this down into small sections like this is I really like to let my paintings dry between layers. So don't be afraid to give yourself time. It doesn't have to be stressful having a project sitting on the easel waiting for you to come back to it. I personally like to take that time and just consider my project. One, I'm letting the layers dry so that if I make a mistake on the next layer, all I have to do is go back and I can wipe it away with water. And because the layers beneath it have already set and dried, then it lets me do that without ruining my bottom layers. Not only that, but sometimes you think you want a painting to go a certain way, and then the more you add to it, the more depth and more layers that you give it, you see new things that you didn't get to see before, and that's all just about giving yourself time and relaxing. So you don't need to be rushed. Sometimes I have a hard time sitting down to a painting because I think, well, I don't have time to sit down and do this entire elaborate painting, so either you do something much more simple than what you wanted to do, or you just don't do it at all. And that's really sad, because the only way for you to grow and to move forward is to go ahead and do some paintings. So never be afraid to give yourself time. It is not a bad thing to work on a painting and then let it sit on the easel for a little bit. Contemplate it, pass it. And while you're doing that, you're subconsciously, when you're creative, you are still subconsciously working on it. Even though you don't have something tangible to look at, your brain is still working on it. You're ruminating over it. You're thinking about it, so that when you come back and you sit down again to work more on it, you've had all these new ideas that you really weren't thinking about before. That's not failure. That's good. Give yourself time. Now, make sure you don't walk away from it forever. If, I think I've given some paintings, it sat on 2 weeks on the easel before I came back to it, and that was perfectly fine. I know if I start to let it go a little bit longer than that, then I'm thinking that I'm just coming up with excuses that I'm not sitting down at my easel. So it's all about a balance, but especially during all the craziness in the world going on, I just want you guys to take a deep breath and know that it's gonna be okay. One way or another, you'll get back to your art when you are ready. I hope you've had fun watching and listening, learning a little bit more about the painting I'm working on, and I can't wait to see you next time. We're going to start adding in some pumpkins and leaves, super fall appropriate, and I can't wait to work on it with you guys. Stay wonderful and stay creative. Bye.